This public forum with the candidates for Bismarck Park Board. I'm Anessa Pfeiffer Johnson with the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator. This candidate forum has been organized by the League of Women Voters of Bismarck-Mandan and is co-sponsored by the Bismarck Tribune and Dakota Media Access. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that promotes the informed participation of all citizens in their government. This league does not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. There are 4 candidates running for election for 3 open seats on the Bismarck Park Board, and all 4 of them have joined us here tonight. They are Mr. Stark, Mr. Engelman, Mr. Schwartz, and Ms. Jeske. The audience is invited to submit questions using index cards provided to you here in the studio audience, and viewers at home can phone in questions by calling 355-1312 tonight between about 7:15 and 7:45 tonight only, May 8th. That number again is 355-1312. This is intended to be a respectful exchange of ideas. Our purpose this evening is to provide voters with information about the candidates and their positions on issues that affect the people of Bismarck. Now let's meet our candidates. You each have 1 minute to tell us why you are seeking election to the Bismarck Park Board. Mr. Stark, you may begin.
Thank you for the opportunity to come in here today. First of all, Jason Stark. I was born and raised in Bismarck. I've been a part of this community for my whole life, and the reason why I'm running is that the Parks and Rec has done so much in my career, for what I'm doing right now, and my life, that I figured I could give something back to the community. And I grew up in the golf program at Riverwood. I grew up in the hockey program in Bismarck, and I coached in both programs. I've done a lot with the Parks and Rec. Not only have I been involved in the programs, but I've also worked at numerous facilities around the area. I mean, through all the golf courses and through all the ice rinks. And also the other reason why I'm running is that when you look at candidates, you want them as users of facilities. And I just don't know where they're at. I mean, I'm not a person that just knows where they're at on a map. I'm actually in those facilities. I'm involved in the bike trails. I'm running weekly. I'm involved in the golf courses. I'm still down there communicating with management and all that kind of stuff. Ice rinks. And as far as that goes, I think I can add a lot of positives from who I know within the user groups, but also as far as the Parks and Rec and their employees go, I can kind of balance what the needs are with what the user groups are wanting from their people. So I can add a lot of expertise through that.
Thank you, Mr. Stark.
Thanks.
Mr. Engelman.
First of all, let me say thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event along with the Tribune. I also would like to take time though to say thank you to Mike and Julie for their current service on the board. 4 years, they've dealt with some very heady issues, and they've done a very wonderful job. I also want to thank Jason. I think it's important that anybody or any position that's open for election should have got candidates. You know, nobody should be running unopposed. We have a wealth of ideas, a wealth of very gifted people in this community, and we'd strive to bring those people out and to have them involved, and that's what makes Bismarck great. I've been blessed to live in this community my entire life. I was blessed to marry my best friend for 36 years. We raised our children here in this community. It's been a great place to live, and the Parks and Rec program has been a key part of our family's growth. I myself am a former coach. I used to be the head track and field coach at Bismarck St. Mary's. I coached in middle school youth programs along with soccer and traveling basketball programs as my kids progressed through the system. I know the importance of recreational activities, but I also know that it's not just the physical side of things. It also has to be to spur the creative mind as well. So the arts are just as important in our recreation facilities and our recreation programs. I'm hopeful that my voice would be one that would bring a different vision, a one of diversity, a one where perhaps maybe people who don't have as much of a voice or feel they don't have a voice can be heard through me. And so that's why I'm running for the board, to hopefully bring a different perspective.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz.
I am Mike Schwartz. I am Mike Schwartz, and I am the current sitting president of the Bismarck Park Board. And the reason I'm running for re-election in my position is, quite frankly, I believe that this is the best almost volunteer job that any one individual can have. It is a job where you can affect so many people within this community in such a wonderful way. And if you look at the past 4 years that I've been on the park board, we've done some wonderful things. We've had a lot of great projects, and we've got probably many more to go. So my thoughts are I'm running because there's more things to do.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske.
Well, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Bismarck Tribune for putting this on as well. Growing up in Jamestown, a lot of my fondest memories revolve around the Park District. In this wintertime, I was cross-country skiing and I was ice skating. In the summer, I was part of the softball program. I played golf, I played tennis, I swam in the public pool. And these opportunities that I had through the Park District were really important to me because they molded me to be the person I am today. I'm incredibly passionate about health and wellness. I work in a healthcare facility. I'm an avid runner. I still play golf and tennis today. I want to make sure that as a park district, we make those opportunities available to every resident, whether they're young or old, whether it's through the arts or other activities that we provide. So that's why I'm running for re-election. Currently, I'm the vice president, and I would like the opportunity to serve 4 more years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to start our questions tonight with questions directly from the audience. One of our members, our viewing members today, sent out a question. Bismarck youth hockey has roughly doubled in the past few years, with over 100 kids added just this year. A Bismarck Park Board facilities study in 2013 recommended an expansion to Schaumburg Arena. How do you recommend the Park Board and community go forward with this?
Well, I think the most important thing with a new hockey rink in town, there's definitely a need. You know, they did a study with comparing it to Fargo. The number of kids on the ice there's a lot more kids per ice sheet than there is in Fargo right now, and it's by 25% more. So there definitely is a need for an ice rink. But I also think, though, that it's important that this cannot be a burden on the taxpayer either. There has to be private funding, fundraising that needs to go into this. When you look at All Seasons #1, which my dad was a part of, he helped build, I should say, helped donate, raise money. That was built on volunteer time, which is a little different nowadays with workforce safety and all. I mean, that's a different issue there, but a lot of it was donated money. Most of it was people volunteering their service to try to get a common cause done. And I think a new ice rink in town is a great idea, and I'm all for it. And I think that there's some people that are in place right now to raise some money for for the new ice rink, and they'll do a good job of doing that. But at the same time, I mean, the Bismarck Parks and Rec cannot just come in and, I mean, we have to make sure it's done with private help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Engelman.
You know, first of all, I think we need to really commend the hockey parents and the figure skating parents. Obviously, the usage is way up, and it really has grown a program over many years. I think the biggest question we have here is it's not necessarily the one of do we need more ice. I mean, obviously, the study shows that we do. The demand for ice time is probably the highest it's ever been. The bigger question, however, is the payment issues. And in light of the current fiscal issues facing the park board, the current budget debt, it's unlikely that the board can really foot the bill heavily for this. So again, the collaborative partnerships with the hockey parents, the ice parents, are key to having those ice sheets put into place. Having them really do the fundraising, as Jason touched on, is going to be a really big part of it. Is what can they bring to the table, and that the Park District can help maybe enhance.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz.
I would echo the same comments. I think it's a great great idea. I think it's a wonderful thing that we should probably be doing. The need is definitely there, and I believe the Park Board has indicated its support of that. However, again, it comes around to partnerships, and partnerships are so very important to us. And in order for the Park District to get a project like that done, it's going to take partnerships, and it's going to be tough for the Park District to come up with the dollars to do something like that right now.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske?
I don't have too much to add, except I would like to say that when I met with the user groups 4 years ago, it was an issue at that time. Prior to moving to Bismarck, I lived in Grand Forks. Obviously, it was pretty much a hockey community. So moving to Bismarck, I was a little surprised at the number or lack of number of ice skating rinks that we had here. So I do think it is a definite need within our community. Our community is growing. We need to try and meet the needs of the people and the residents who participate in our programs. So I agree. I think this can be a project that is something that we need to move forward with, but it's definitely going to have to be funded through partnerships and through some private and public funding.
Thank you. Our next question, I'll begin with you, Mr. Engelman. What recreational areas do you visit?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that for me?
What recreational areas do you visit?
Probably for me, I'm a really avid walker, more probably out of necessity than anything else. So I'm really, the walking trails are where I'm at most of the time. Previous life, if you will, I used to be able to play golf an awful lot. But those are probably the biggest aspects of just enjoying the nature trails for me.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
I do some walking. My wife and I do, in fact, a fair amount around Tom O'Leary Golf Course, and we really enjoy the trails. And the Park District has done a wonderful job of providing trails for us. I also do some paddling. I also make feeble attempts at playing golf and enjoy those sports.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske?
Well, I am an avid runner. I don't think that's a big secret in this community. And so I think I probably visited those 600 miles, or those 60,000, or sorry, these 60 miles of trails that we have more than a couple times. I'm also an avid golfer. I am joining the tennis league this year. You'll usually find me at Capitol Racket and Fitness, or else at the Aquatic Center working out. And then I do enjoy going to Sleepy Hollow and checking out the plays there.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
Thank you. My answer to this question is that I use pretty much almost all the facilities. When I decided to run for this Parks and Rec position, most people would say, well, you just go to the Aquatic Center because you're running for the Parks and Rec. But I've been a member up there at the Aquatic Center for 2 years now. I use the bike trails on a weekly basis between running and biking. Golf courses, I've been a part of the golf community for a long time in this town, through men's associations. Hockey, I still play men's league hockey. I do that. I shoot archery. I do that also. And my passion is that I spend most of my time in the wintertime is cross-country skiing. I mean, I've helped out at Riverwood for many years, trying to develop a system down there and trying to work that. And those are the facilities that I use. So there's not too many I miss.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next question will begin with you, Mr. Schwartz. What new or expanded needs and opportunities do you see for the Park District in the next 5 to 10 years?
From my perspective, the needs that I see for the Park District are going to be, there's actually 2 projects that I envision. One is there needs to be some renovation because we're at a point with Capitol Racket and Fitness Center where we need to put some money into that place. And you talk to a lot of people and there's a huge need there. The other need that we have is for regional park space. Right now we've got a green space ordinance in place that we hope is going to work very well for us and provide us neighborhood parks. But looking further down the road, we need another Sertoma, we need another hillside, a park of that size, further probably towards the north and maybe northeast.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske?
Every year we put together a strategic plan, and part of the strategic plan that we've identified this year obviously is Hillside Pool and the skate park. We're also looking at Capitol Racket really needs to be renovated. It's not ADA compliant. And also the War Memorial Building. I think those are 2 other buildings that definitely need some type of renovation if we can afford that. You know, we also have a real need in this community with the growing numbers of residents for indoor recreational space. And this was a brutal winter in Bismarck and throughout North Dakota. You know, we have a lot of people that participate in the indoor volleyball and the other spaces. So I think it's really important that we look to see what we can do to increase our recreational space. So those would be my, my key points on that one.
Thank you. What new or expanded needs and opportunities do you see for the Park District in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think some of the, well, two of the major ones, first of all, are there's a need for gym space in this town. And we already have the facility with the World War Memorial Building. I think it's important that we maintain the facilities that we have. It's a lot cheaper to maintain something than it is to build something. We all know that. If we're going to keep our budget where we need to, it's about maintenance, long-term, staying up with it. Second of all, they are correct about the capital racket and fitness. My concern with that capital racket and fitness is that parking. If they expand that, parking up there is an issue right now to begin with, and with expansion, we're going to have some parking issues. I think Schaumburg Ice Arena is definitely top agenda too, but like I said before, that needs to be something that needs to be partnered with the private community, and there needs to be some fundraising that goes on with that. So those are three of them for me.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman.
Well, I think I have to agree with Mike that the need for a regional park on the north side of town is going to be critical in the future. With the growth of the community, particularly northwest to the northeast, looking at a larger park, community park, is going to be a very important issue. I need to disagree a little bit about, whether renovation or expansion is the priority. Because for me, it really is looking and doing site assessments to make sure that the existing facilities are all ADA compliant. That is part of my background. I would want to make sure that all of the facilities and all of the programs themselves would be accessible and be inclusive for all people, whether they have a disability or not, whether they're senior citizens or youth. They should be able to have access to all the facilities. So doing site assessments on all the park board facilities to really gain a clear insight as to where they're standing right now, I think is critical. And so I would be advocate for that.
Thank you. To piggyback on that last question, what is the first issue, Ms. Jeske, that you would address if elected to the park board?
I think one of the biggest issues we face right now is the fact that we are living in a growing community and that we are struggling to meet the demands for the programs and services that we provide. This has impacted our budget. Right now, we are sitting at the highest level of debt that we have ever had as a park district. We will retire some of that debt at the end of this year, but I think we really need to look at how we can strengthen our public and private relationships so that we can provide the services that are needed within this community. So to me, the biggest issue is working to foster those relationships a little bit more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stark.
I think one of the biggest issues with the growing community is going to be land acquisitions. That's going to be a huge thing. If you look at the map right now of where the park board facilities are at and what the land is owned, if you go north of town, every person on that north side will tell you that there's very, very little park space up there. And, granted that we have the neighborhood parks, green space is what I call it, that's going on, but there is a need for more park board land down term. I'm not saying right now that it needs to be built on, but you need to obtain that land and hold on to it for the time when you do need it, because this town is growing. If you don't have that land, you won't be able to have any park board facilities within that area. So I think that's an important thing is land acquisitions. And with that also, land acquisition is also partnering with the county and the city. I think that's a thing that we haven't done. I mean, as far as Bismarck in a whole, and I say we, I don't think Bismarck, as far as the Parks and Rec go, and as far as the park board go, that they've partnered well enough, put it that way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lincoln once said that you can't escape the responsibilities of tomorrow by evading them today. So for me, the most critical issue that we can do is to address the budget deficit and to look at the fiscal future of the park district, how revenues are generated to ensure that they're equitable. We can't do anything until we get the fiscal picture in order. Land acquisition, adding programs, looking at new facilities, renovations are all tied very strongly to efficient and effective fiscal management and budgeting. And that really does tie also to looking at the way the revenues come into the park district to make sure that those opportunities are equitable to the district, whether they be through through cooperative partnerships or looking at existing revenue streams, tax streams. I think that's critical at this point.
Thank you.
I also agree. I think two of the biggest issues that the Park District is facing right now is the issue of growth of the city and providing the diverse recreational opportunities that the community requires. The other part of that is funding. And I firmly believe that the Park District needs some other form of sustainable revenue stream to help pay for what we have. Right now, when you look at your tax bill, probably 15 cents, 12 to 15 cents out of every dollar pays for facilities within this town. And I think that we need another stream because we carry the heavy debt and we also want to build. So, or I shouldn't say build, but we want to grow with the community.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with you, Mr. Stark. Do you believe the Bismarck Park system adequately offers recreational opportunities to all age groups?
Actually, I think that when you look at the user groups and the impact that the user groups use, most of those people are 15 age, 50 years 15 age and under, or 70 and older. I think the opportunity is out there for those groups right now. Yeah. I think the programs that we have for the kids are wonderful. I think the senior programs that we have are wonderful. I think that Bismarck does a really good job as far as getting people, it doesn't matter what age group or whoever they might be, it allows them the opportunity to do what they do, whether it could be handicapped, could be accessible. I mean, they've done a good job of keeping up with that. So.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman, do you believe the Bismarck Park system adequately offers recreational opportunities to all age groups?
Again, I go back to what I said in my opening statements, and it really does come to me, for me, it comes down to what do we define recreation as? So many people look at recreation as simply being the physical aspect. And for me, it has to go far beyond that. It's also the creative side. I think Director Bina and his staff have done a phenomenal job of administering their programs. The park board, the current park board, has done a nice job. Can we do better? Yes. I think we can look at programs that, again, they're going to really spark the creative side of the community, particularly in light of the fact that the community is growing so fast and diversifying so quickly, so that really the arts or the programs really are reflective of the cultural native makeup of our community now.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz.
I won't belabor the point. I think the Park District does a great job of addressing the needs of the community, and I think the best sign of that is that the number of calls that the Park District takes are very small, and I think they do wonderful.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske?
And I'll pretty much reiterate what Mike was saying as well. You know, I think we are a very diverse park district. I served for 2 years in Grand Forks, and moving here and learning more about the park district here, I was amazed at the amount of services that we provide. And like Harley had said, it's not just about recreation, it's the arts. You know, we partner with Gateway to Science, we are partners with Sleepy Hollow. We are a very diverse park district, so I think we've done a very good job. Is there always an opportunity to grow and expand? Absolutely. I think when you stop growing, you stop learning, and you stop meeting the needs of the community.
Thank you. I'll start the next question with you, Mr. Engelman. Should the park board coordinate with the Mandan Park Board?
You know, it's a very interesting question, and really you have two different philosophies potentially on either side of the river, but I think discussions need to take place. If there's one thing that I learned through the years of working as an ADA coordinator is that you need to listen. You need to communicate effectively, and having discussions are always better. They always lead to enhanced services or enhanced offerings, or at least a coordination so that you're not competing or conflicting with each other. So good dialogue, I think, is critical between the two programs.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, do you believe the Bismarck Park Board should coordinate with the Mandan Park Board?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that goes on right now. I know Executive Director Bina is talking to Cole Higland over there all the time. Do we mix projects and things like that? No, we don't. We're on different sides of the river, but do we talk? Absolutely.
Thank you. Mrs. Jeske?
You know, our park district and the Mandan Park District wouldn't get where we're at today without forming partnerships. And yes, the two executive directors do speak very frequently. They check on the programs and services that they're offering. We often check to make sure that, you know, what we're charging for a user fee is comparable to what they're charging. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, not only just between the Mandan Park District, but throughout the park districts within this state.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
I do agree that right now that they are collaborating, and that is a good thing. And there's many instances you can talk about golf courses. Between the golf courses in Bismarck and the golf directors, they do talk, they do communicate, they do share stuff. Also, I'll give you another example, is cross-country skiing. I mean, Riverwood has one of the best cross-country skiing areas in the state, bar none as far as a public facility goes. And when Mandan was starting theirs, there was a lot of questions that were asked of Bismarck on what they're doing. So, I mean, they do share information. You know, as far as sharing facilities, I think that's going to be, it might be a little tough, you know, on how you budget things and how you spend on things. But as far as collaborating, they definitely do. And obviously they have to too, with all the softball tournaments, all that revenue that comes into town. There's a lot of collaboration, so.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, this next question begins with you. How can the Park District maintain good relationships with other governing bodies, such as the county and city commissions and the school board? And is there opportunity for sharing?
It comes down to communication all the time. People talking to each other, the different entities talking to each other. And, you know, could we do a better job of that? Absolutely. We talk about it all the time. But I think there is some taking place right now.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske?
You know, I think we do have a very good working relationship with some of the other government entities. You know, I look at the Green Space Ordinance, and that wouldn't have been possible in the city had it not been for Commissioner Asvig and Mayor Warford and the council taking the lead on that. That was such an important and critical component to maintaining and expanding our green space within this community. I also look at the school district, and we collaborate with the school district. We put playgrounds on school district properties. So we work collaboratively already. I think it is important that we continue to expand upon those collaborations, partnerships, and working together will become a better community because of it.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
I think their relationships can get a lot stronger from where they're at right now with the city. The green space deal is a great start to it, but I also think we need to work with start working with the county. Bismarck is bigger than just what the city limits are. What the Parks and Rec serves, if you did a service map on that, it'd be incredible on the area that it encompasses. You know, and I think that there's some great partnerships that could happen with the county coming up here. And I think just everyone who's on these boards, whether it's Burleigh County, whether it's City of Bismarck, or whether it's Parks and Rec, we need to be open-minded and step back and look what's good for the community. And that's the most important focus. We're all in this together. And with how fast Bismarck's growing, if we're not in it together, then there's going to be problems.
Thank you. Mr. Engelmann?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to disagree much with any of the other three on this one at all. I think the communication is good. Can it get better? Oh, absolutely. I think, and Jason touched on the green space ordinance. In my mind, it's a good start. Is it the best? Time will tell. Can we make it better? I believe that we probably could. But that comes through open communication with the different government bodies. I also think, though, that one of the things we have to put on the table and really have a serious discussion with on the City Commission is the use of the tax stream from the beverage and lodging taxes. The Park District generates a lot of income back into this community, over $800 million fiscal impact on this community. That return on investment betters the economy, betters the businesses. Having that type of a portion of that stream coming to assist the Park District with its maintenance and a potential expansion as the city grows, I think is very important.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske, our next question. What will the Park Board do to bring back the slide to Hillside Pool, keep up several lap lanes available at specific times at Hillside Pool, and like there is presently at the noon hour? So how do we increase the usability, perhaps, is what they're looking for?
Well, right now, Hillside Pool, we're just waiting for the estimates to come back. We have, as a board, approved it as an improvement district, but we're waiting for the estimates to come back. We are a little concerned that they may come in a little bit high, but, you know, it is something. I have a daughter who was very active in the swimming community here. So I'm a big proponent of swimming. I think it is a lifelong sport. I do think that there is the need to renovate Hillside. The biggest issue is making sure that it is affordable and that as a park district we can make it happen. But I believe in the It would be important to have the lap lanes. We want to make it a multi-use facility that's available to all ages, so we are looking at a splash component. For the younger children, we are looking at a slide for the older children and lap lanes for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
I think we need to look at, as we talked about earlier, being fiscally responsible. I think we need to look at, what is being fiscally responsible. I mean, sometimes we can't have everything in our community that we want, and I think it has to be looked at. I mean, whether it's feasible, the usage, if it's there, what revenue does it generate? I mean, what does it cost for insurance because you have a water slide? I've got to think it's more expensive than just not having one because of what can happen. Also, the lap lanes, it's another situation there too where you have to look at usage. I mean, are things getting used? I mean, I want a lot of things in my life too, but at the same time, there's only so many things you can do, and you want to tighten up the wallet a little bit. There's some things that necessarily you have to look at and see if they're financially responsible, put it that way.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman?
My 4 children really spent a lot of time in the pools in this community, as did my wife and I when we were growing up. My kids, they all took the swimming lessons, although I have to say that my daughter really didn't graduate past dog paddling too much, but I think they're really a part of our community. That being said, though, I think Jason hit it perfectly on the head, is that you really need to look at the cost and what is the return on investment. The other tangibles, such as the insurance issues. As Julie said, the current park district, or the district right now, is looking at it and studying it. And so I have to somewhat defer on this question, saying, until the results of those studies come back and those estimates come back, and until we know how much the community or collaborative partnerships can bring into it, I think a person can make a firm decision on the future of Hillside Pool.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
I would echo a lot of Commissioner Jeski's comments, and I guess to the point that I think Hillside Park is a very important, actually Hillside Pool is a very important part of our community, and it's long overdue for maintenance. We've been putting it off for a long time. We've realized that it was going to be expensive. We knew that, and I think that's part of why we were pushing it off. And we're at a point now where it's time to do something. The pool is settling. It needs to be taken care of. And as far as the other things, since we're going to do a renovation, we've been looking at options. We're looking at slides. We're looking at lap swimming. We're looking at a splash park. In the name of fiscal responsibility, we're looking at the costs, and we're going to see what we can do and maximize the dollars for the community.
Thank you. That leads to our next question, and you get this one, Mr. Stark. How can the park board balance the maintenance of current facilities with the need for adding new ones?
That's a good question. I think it gets back to private partnerships. We get back to the Schaumburg Ice Arena. If people want something, they'll come forward. They'll help. I know the hockey community right now, they're talking, they have fundraising groups. They're starting to set up. If they want something, they're going to help out. Also, I think also public partnerships, as well with the county and the city. I mean, we need to have those things happen to expand. And without that, I mean, we won't have expansions. We all need to work together. And if somebody wants something, you gotta help out a little bit. So.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman?
My business background is really popping up and telling me that really, before you can look long-term, you need to really look at where you're at fiscally. So really, I would advocate efficient fiscal management and budgeting. I'm not saying that it's not now, but we really need to look at how we're budgeting to ensure the maintenance of the existing facilities. But we also need to look at effective strategic visioning. And I don't mean strategic planning. I'm looking at strategic visioning, which is longer term, with really defined goals and measurable objectives and outcomes. We want to ensure that we really are managing our progress, building those collaborative partnerships, whether they be with user groups, with the business community, are going to be critical to the future of the Park District with any type of potential expansion, and also the maintenance of existing facilities. The district has proven itself that it can do these things already with its relationships with the Community Bowl and also with the municipal ballpark renovations. They're there. We just need to strive for more of them.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
Could I hear the question again, please?
Yes, you can. I was just looking at it. How can the park board balance the maintenance of current facilities with the need for adding new ones?
Again, I guess I would step back to, for me, and when I ran 4 years ago, and I still stand on the same, maintenance is an important thing. It's important to be a good steward of what you have already. And I believe that you cannot move forward with new projects until you have things in a usable state, a good state for use. When Jason mentioned partnerships, that is so important. The Park District has, on the website, probably 46 partners listed, but I know that there's probably well over 100 when you take into consideration all the sporting teams and things like that. So I would say partnerships are important, yes.
Partnerships. And Ms. Jeske?
You know, it's a delicate balance is what it is. And this is not a new issue for our park district or any park district. You know, it's the age-old adage of how do you continue to grow and yet maintain what you already have. You know, is there the opportunity to maybe explore some alternative revenue streams? Could we look to a sales tax? That's been kicked around before. The bed and breakfast tax is something that's also been discussed. You know, can we expand our taxable base beyond the current limits that we currently have? The school district's limits are a little bit farther out than ours. Is there an opportunity for us to maybe expand that taxable base, because those residents outside of the city limits are definitely using our programs and services. So, you know, there's a lot of opportunities out there for us. Again, partnerships are critical to maintaining and expanding our services. But as a park board member, I'm willing to look at all of these opportunities and move forward with some of them.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman, this next question begins with you. What do you see in the future for the World War Memorial Building?
You know, the World War Memorial Building has been a great facility for the Park District for so long, but it certainly is in dire need of upgrade. I really think we need to take a really close look at what the building's usage could be. I do like the downtown development plan. I do support the idea that it could turn into a really outstanding arts complex, performing and visual arts. I think it would be a great partner or accompanying piece to the Bell right next to it. But these are all, you know, it's all going to cost money. And so again, I always have to come back to this right now, is we need to look at the fiscal aspect of things. If the art community can come together and speak in a singular voice to bring the funding to redevelop and retask the World War building, WW building, let's say that fast really tight. You know, I would like to see that happen. I think it's a great structure, but I think its use should be changed.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
I think that the World War Memorial Building is a gem in our downtown, and it has such historical value. Do we need to do some work? Absolutely. The Park District needs to put some money into it. But I tell you what, for what we've got in our portfolio right now, I would certainly not let it go to any other use, because we need the gym space in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske?
And I'm pretty much going to just reiterate what Mike said. You know, right now, it's a valuable piece of property for us, just because we use it for so many things. It's indoor volleyball. We have used it for archery practice. We've used it for target practice for so many things. So it is a beautiful building. I don't know if anyone's ever had an opportunity to walk in it before or walk by it, but it's the heart of our community. So it is important that we do maintain it. But, you know, right now, we can't afford as a park district to do anything with it.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
I think the maintenance on that is very important. It's been a part of our community for a long time. If you go over to Fowler Photography over here with the antique pictures, there's pictures of Bismarck High playing St. Mary's back in 1940. I mean, the place is very, very unique. Second thing is I think you have to look at what the cost is. And maintaining that right now, depending on the cost, we all know what everything costs as far as building houses and building buildings in Bismarck right now. If you liquidate that and turn it into something else, are we willing to, as a park board and as a city, to go build new gym space? They're already looking at the hockey rink on the south side. That hockey rink is over $7 million. I mean, what's new gym space going to cost? And it's a lot cheaper to maintain things nowadays than it is to start rebuilding.
Thank you. Our next question comes from our audience, and it begins with Mr. Schwartz. How important is the Park District's role in promoting the health and wellness of our citizens?
Huge, huge. The Park District is a partner in all of our health and wellness. You look at the programs that are available to the district, all the exercise programs, all the balls, all the facilities, everything that's there. It is so important for the Park District to be a partner in that. And I think the Park District does a good job. You look at the Park District website and what's out there. They do a great job of letting people know what's out there and what's available, and a great partner in quality of life.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske, how important is the Park District's role in the health and wellness of our citizens?
You know, we had over 100,000 people participate in our youth activities last year, which is amazing. But I think health and wellness expands just beyond recreational activities. It does include the arts as well. So I think we offer a nice complement to that, and we provide people the opportunity to go to see some very talented youth within our community perform, it's so exhilarating. And then also there's the Gateway to Science, so they have an opportunity to learn about the science aspect. So it's huge. There would be no health and wellness in this community without the Park District, in my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
I think that is the main focus. You know, they look at the goals of the Parks and Rec and what they state as the goals, which is absolutely 100% correct, is affordability and accessibility. But what is the common goal? It's the health of Bismarck. It's health and wellness. And to reiterate what they were talking about earlier is that it's not just physical. It's not just running, jumping, throwing. It's also the mental aspect with the Sleepy Hollow and the arts programs that we have here. And without the Bismarck Parks and Rec, and the whole staff has done a great job so far. That's all part of it. Without them, there would be none in Bismarck.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman?
I'm not so sure how I can add to anything that's already been said. It's one of the key missions, if not the mission of the Park District, to offer those opportunities for health and wellness. And to touch on again, again, we look at recreation, it goes beyond just the physical. It's the creative side of things too. Giving them those opportunities. I kind of go back to the earlier question regarding the World War Memorial Building and its use. Yes, we have a shortage of gym space, certainly. But that facility, again, could be used to enhance programs in different areas. Of course, we'd also have to look at the accessibility issues and the costs associated with making it accessible. But it is a jewel that does add to that health and wellness component.
Thank you. Our next question starts with Ms. Jeske. What is the possibility of a pay-per event facility, maybe for weddings, different functions, a multi-use facility similar to the Y?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question one more time? I guess I'm not understanding what they're looking for.
It's from the audience, and I'm trying to do my best to.
Okay.
What is the possibility of a pay-per-event facility, perhaps to fund for weddings and maybe a multi-use facility, like the Y? And I'm wondering if maybe how do we, like the memorial building or different things, how do we make sure that they're being used year-round or all day, or a new facility like that?
You know, that's a very good question, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to answer that, to be well honest with you. I know there are a lot of facilities within this community that you already have the opportunity to rent for a function. You know, you've got the Civic Center, you've got the hotels and the motels. You know, there is always the opportunity to rent the Bismarck State College Aquatic Center. You can rent the pool for a day. We already provide opportunities for birthday parties there. So I think, I think we do add a complement to that. I don't know if it's something that at this point is really economically feasible as a district for us to offer, considering the fact that there are so many public and private places that offer those opportunities already.
Thank you. Mr. Stark?
If I'm actually getting this question correct, I mean, I think we already have one of those facilities, the Bismarck Country Club. The old Tom O'Leary Pro Shop is one of those facilities that you can rent for weddings. Depends on if they're talking about a facility that, larger scale facility that you're talking about, a city partnership and county where you come together. If you're talking about a large event center, I think that's something that has to be worked out through a partnership, county and city. I mean, as far as doing something like that, the park board by no means would have that in the budget, I wouldn't think, to afford a facility that would be that big and require that much infrastructure to maintain and keep going. So,
Thank you. Mr. Engelmann?
I find myself thinking that I'm glad that Julie got this question first.
And I was thinking I was really glad or really unhappy I did.
I think I have to agree with what Julie was saying. You know, there are so many things in the Park District right now, so many facilities that potentially can be used for multi-purpose, and that is happening right now, and Jason touched on the country club. I'm also a little reluctant to go, if I'm understanding the question correctly, to go so far as to to renting facilities or building or obtaining a facility for those type of events and taking it out of the hands of the private business owners in the community. I think that's better off left there, and us as a park district looking at how we can use our own facilities within the structure of the programs we offer.
Thank you. And that is the last main question. We do have a minute for each of you to address anything that we might not have been able to cover well enough. I know there was more questions about the hockey facilities, our dog park, and the usage for the College Aquatic Center. So if any of you've got some answers for that, now would be your chance. Mr. Stark, you are first for this final closing statements.
I think you're talking as far as just any other stronger points that we have.
Any stronger points you can close with?
Well, I think it all gets back to that we have to be fiscally responsible as a Parks and Rec. There's a lot of wants out there, but at the same time, I grew up where there's a lot of wants, but it's what you need. And I believe in growth, and we need to stay up with the growth, but we also need to work on other ways. We can't continually open up the checkbook and keep on handing out money to all this stuff. I mean, there has to be a stop to it at some point. You have to take care of what you got and figure out how things are getting used, where you're getting the best value out of what the resources you're putting into it. That's one of the strategic plans that the Parks and Rec has right now. And I think if you keep that in mind and keep that focus, this Parks and Rec does a very good job of including, young, to every different age category you can think of. And they've done a great job, and hope that can be part of it to keep it going.
Thank you. Mr. Engelmann.
Well, again, I wanted to express my sincere thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Bismarck Tribune for hosting this event, for the opportunity to come forward and speak. I've got into this race simply because I've lived in this community my entire life. It's been a great community. It's growing. It's changing. I'd like to be a part of the process of visioning a brighter future with enhanced programs. To me, it falls down to, if you will, the 4 E's, and that's the efficient fiscal management and budgeting, effective strategic visioning, ensuring accessibility and program inclusion for all people, and finally enhancing the arts in our community as a reflection of the growing diversity of the community. If we can tap into all those 4 things through the maintenance of existing facilities and a really planned progress for potential expansion, I think that the Park District in Bismarck really will be something that will be rivaled around the state and the region. So again, I offer my sincere thanks to the League, and hope for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, you have a minute for closing comments or any topics that we haven't touched.
Thank you. The only thing that I would like to touch on is, once again, we live in a very vibrant community with lots of very active people. And I think the Park District's challenge is going to be able to grow with the population and be able to be part of that growth and provide the things that the community needs. And I think, we're retiring debt at probably about $2 million a year. And it's important to note that we could retire debt, but it would probably, we'd have to put everything on hold for 10 or 15 years to do that, and I don't consider that to be a good option. So I think we need to look at other opportunities, keep our minds open, and I would very much like to be part of that process.
Thank you. Ms. Jeske.
Well, thank you again for putting on this evening. You know, be the change in the world. I remember reading those words on the back of a car. It was a bumper sticker. And they resonated with me at that time. And I committed myself at that time to be the change that I wanted to see in this world. Having the opportunity to serve the residents of Bismarck for the past 4 years has been a great honor for me. You know, when I was elected, the Bismarck Tribune had a little quote the next day that said that Julie Jeske's personality will help unify the board. And at that time, 4 years ago, our biggest issue was bringing this board together. I think we've done a really good job with that, but I think we've had a much bigger pill to swallow. Our community is growing. It's growing at an increase we never fathomed, to be honest with you. So we have challenges. You know, we have aging facilities that are antiquated, that need to be renovated, and we have an expandable population. So there are challenges, but I'm up for that challenge, and I hope the residents of Bismarck will see fit to re-elect me for another 4 years to this position. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Bismarck Tribune, Dakota Media Access, and the volunteers from the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum and organizing these questions tonight. Thank you, too, to the viewers at home who are watching and the audience members tonight for taking the time to learn more about the candidates and these issues. The program will replay several times on Government Access, Cable Channel 2, and will be available for online viewing at www.freetv.org in the days leading up to the June election. Before we close this candidate forum, I want to remind you that voting in North Dakota couldn't be easier. It's very simple. And you can find voting information at your county auditor's office and from the office of the North Dakota Secretary of State. Again, thank you all for being here, and thank you for watching.